Hi all, Connor here from Concrete Character Sheet. Today we're going to talk about something a bit different. Rather than focusing on a single build, we're going to talk about a category of character options. Specifically, we're going to talk about rolling for stats. The roll 4 dice and drop the lowest method, also called 4d6 drop lowest, described on page 13 of the player's handbook. Before accounting for racial modifiers, the true average for rolled stats is slightly higher than the standard array of 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. The average for 46 drop lowest stat line is going to be similar, but with the 16 as the highest stat instead of 15. Not a huge difference though. See the description for the source of these calculations. However, we aren't here to talk about average characters. We're here to talk about above average rolls. Not crazy high, but about 18% of 46 drop lowest attribute sets will result in two 16s. So regardless of how high the rest of your stats are, let's say there's a 14 in there somewhere, and that you rolled more 12s or 13s than 8s that you'd find on a standard array or a point buy, you've rolled a very powerful character. So if you roll stats and you happen to be in that 18% who has two 16s or higher, let's talk about your options. The most obvious option is just to take a normal class or a normal build and add feats where you'd normally have to add attribute points. You'll end up with a character who was going to be strong, who is now stronger. But when you've rolled above average stats, you have a unique chance to play a wider array of character classes and builds than the usual set. So let's talk about those. In my first attempt at the classic top 10 list, here's my take at 10 options for your high stats character that's more interesting than just taking more feats. Number 1. The first two are catch-alls. So number 1 is Dipping Barbarian 1 through 4 on almost any class. In older editions like 3.5, a single level of Barbarian was very popular, as the class had a few downsides and was very front-loaded. In 5e, that was mitigated by the requirements of Rage. No spellcasting or concentration, and the bonuses to damage are only on strength-based attacks, while medium armor needs at least 14 dexterity to be effective, limiting how many points a Barbarian can put into mental stats. It's actually quite an elegant piece of design that encourages Barbarians to play a bit on the big dumb bruiser side without making them illiterate like in previous editions. This all means that a slew of dexterity or even intelligence or charisma-based attacks don't mix well with Barbarian, with the strength-based damage requirement even if there's a standard strength rogue build that doesn't require above-average stats. But with above-average stats, we can make some excellent combos like Paladin with a Barbarian dip, made famous by the Critical Role cameo character Archon the Cruel, who also appears in Descent into Avernus. The Barbarian Paladin synergizes with just 1 or 2 levels in Barbarian to make a Paladin that hits much harder and is even harder to kill. Battlesmith or Armor or Artificer with a dip in Barbarian means you don't need to rely on intelligence for attacks and can raise strength to benefit from the Rage bonus. Adding in Ancestral Guardian can help Battlesmith's tank, for instance. Valor or Swords Bards, who specialize in melee, can become that infamous Bardbarian, particularly now that bards get the concentration-free and rage-friendly spell Mirror Image. Spore Druids and Moon Druids both love a Barbarian dip. Yes, Moon Druids already loved dipping Barbarian, but even more so now because with above-average stats, you won't have an issue hitting the 13 strength required to multiclass. Likewise, fighters love Barbarian dips without above-average stats, and all the more so with them. Strength Monks can mix in Barbarian, since rolled stats make it easy to qualify for both classes, have enough stats to have a higher constitution and dexterity to have a decent armor class, and the Monk's martial arts feature merely allows the use of dexterity for attacks and damage, but does not prevent a Barbarian Monk from using strength as normal. Rangers benefit from adding Barbarian to boost their martial abilities, in particular because an above-average stat line allows Rangers to manage a 13 or 14 dexterity without sacrificing much. Unlike in point buy or standard array, then strength rogues benefit from Barbarian dips as usual. Non-Hexblade Blade Warlocks become more viable when they have above average stats and a bit of Barbarian thrown in, adding viability to their use of a big two-handed packed weapon that uses strength. And yes, even the Bladesinger Wizard can benefit from a level or more, but I'd suggest just 1 level, in Barbarian, as above-average rolled stats allow a strong intelligence, dexterity, strength, and constitution to whichever degree. On that note, there's number 2, Dipping Bladesinger on almost any class. Ever wanted to have lots of rituals, cantrips, first-level spells, And extra armor, move speed, and concentration checks? Now you can with Bladesinger Wizard 2. Far beyond the regular Tortle Bladesinger, Eldritch Knight Bladesinger, and Arcane Trickster Bladesinger that work fine with normal stats, we've got the surprisingly synergistic Monk Bladesinger, where the underwhelming mobility tank Monk benefits from the extra speed from Bladesong as well as the armor, but also Hexblade mixing with Bladesinger 2 and light armor, Ranger mixing with Bladesinger 2 and light armor, Paladin mixing with Bladesinger 2 if you have the stats to wear light armor, Moon Druids and Spore Druids mixing with Bladesinger 2, and various types of Bard, melee or not, who could use more armor class. Number 3, Spore Druid. Similar to our Meet and Yeet Ranger Cleric, above average rolled stats allows for great new combinations to make use of the bonus to damage and the temporary hit points from Spore Druid, such as the Paladin 6 Spore Druid 14 build, Ranger 5 Spore Druid 15, and Fighter 11 Spore Druid 9. The issue in all these cases is that a point-buy stat line would make this multiclass pretty lackluster, particularly because of the multiclassing requirements, but the same is not true with above-average rolled stats. Number 4, Paladin Wizards or Paladin Clerics. Not just Bladesinger, but we're talking any of the many wizard schools that could make the famous Paladin Sorcerer build even better, and many cleric schools that are a thematic fit even if attributes don't normally match. Paladins would love the Arcane Ward from the School of Abjuration, or the School of War Magic's Arcane Deflection, not to mention Portent, the Transmuter's Stone at Transmutation Wizard 6, and on the cleric side, the Light Cleric with Warding Flare and Fireball, Trickery Cleric with Mirror Image and Blur, and Tempest Cleric with Destructive Wrath and the Paladin's 3 levels of spell slots to mix. These are all strong options, plus the Order Cleric with its level 6 bonus action spellcasting option rivaling the Sorcerer's Quickened Spell. These aren't necessarily stronger than a Paladin Sorcerer or Paladin Bard, but the same spell slot scaling works just as well in Paladin Wizards and Paladin Clerics, and there are new twists to explore. Honorable mention goes to Paladin Arcane Trickster, which mostly works with normal stats, but is much better with a rolled stats build, allowing you to have enough strength for plate mail, enough dexterity to attack with a rapier, and an extra source of damage from sneak attack. On the subject of the Tempest Cleric, we've got the Wizard Tempest Cleric. Much like the better-known Sorcerer Tempest Cleric build, the Wizard, particularly the Order of Scribes, with a high stat roll is able to really leverage having a high int and a decent to high wisdom to really make use of their ability to change the damage type of a spell to lightning or thunder damage without costing extra resources, then use Destructive Wrath to maximize it. This isn't something that needs above average stats to do, but it's a much more comfortable, less multiple attribute dependent build if you have high stats. Number 6, the Warlock Artillerist. This build mixes quite perfectly, one method being an Artillerist with 2 levels in Warlock, much like our Hypnocat build from last week, which allows the Artillerist to gain Eldritch Blasts with Agonizing Blast to improve with Hex, while mostly using their Eldritch Cannon. Then again, a Warlock with 3 levels in Artillerist also has benefits as you gain a constant bonus action attack for your Warlock, as well as a set of level 1 infusions to supplement your Warlock invocations. Honorable mention, for a similar reason, goes to Barbarian Artillerist 3, Ranger Artillerist 3, and the questionably good but highly thematic Forge Cleric Artillerist 3, which isn't bad, just that clerics already have spiritual weapons for a bonus action attack. Number 7, the Strength Ranger multiclassing with anything, actually. As mentioned in the Meet and Yeet video, strength-based rangers have a weird problem where they are always tempted to multiclass for cool features and heavy armor, but doing so means they need a dexterity of 13 for no reason, if they'd otherwise be strength-based. If you've got above average rolled stats, chances are your dexterity and wisdom both being 13 won't be a hindrance, and you can multiclass into and out of Ranger to your heart's content. Number 8, Mountain Dwarves. Using the trick, which I first learned from Colby at D4, to swap out the Mountain Dwarf's medium armor proficiency for martial weapon proficiency, we can make some really unusual Gish builds with rolled stats supplemented by the Mountain Dwarf's +2/+2 racial modifiers. Ideal for this are Swords Bards, Abjuration Wizards, and Draconic Sorcerers. The latter two use Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade, but unlike most builds, they'll have light armor and proficiency in the Great Sword with enough strength to use it and the option to take the Great Weapon Master feat. Draconic Sorcerers can get 2 martial weapon proficiency since they'll rely on their Scaly Skin plus Dexterity. Swords bards, who don't get all martial weapons the way Valor bards do, can ditch the medium armor from Mountain Dwarf to get a great sword or polearm proficiency, then get medium armor back from going Swords bard. The key here is that you can do all this while staying a single-class bard, wizard, or sorcerer, which, if you've seen my first build, you know I love single-class bards, and the same is true for wizards and sorcerers. Number 9. Melee clerics that get second attack via Bard 6. Normally, melee clerics like the Forge cleric have a difficult time getting second attack while preserving their spell slot progression. But if you have enough stats to have a 16 or higher charisma, and maybe even a 15 strength or higher for plate armor, you're able to multiclass into Bard, probably after Cleric 5 since Spirit Guardians scale so well, to work on getting second attack by level 11. Or do the inverse starting at Bard 6 and go Cleric until 14 to pick up the Divine Strike feature. This is a good option for someone like a War Cleric who is hurting for the extra attack feature. Number 10, the Paladin Monk. This one doesn't sound like it should work, but remember that fist attacks can cause smites, so there is a synergy here for a Ruinous Nova build. That said, improved Divine Smite does not work with unarmed strikes due to the way it's worded. There has to be a weapon present. So Paladin 19, Monk 1 isn't bad. You can then play a Longsword Ronin who doesn't wear armor, assuming your stats are high enough, but you're better off with Paladin 6, Monks 4, and then taking the rest in Paladin. Then again, Gloomstalker 4 would also be great. Nobody would expect a Paladin 6, Monk 4, Gloomstalker 4, but it's really got some incredible Nova potential, able to make 5 attacks in the first round of combat by spending a key point, with or without equipment. It's the kind of build that's all but impossible without rolling stats, but exciting to consider and a fun option all around. So that's my 10. A few builds that almost made the cut were the Ranger 5 Divine Soul Sorcerer to get access to a splash of Druid, Cleric, and Wizard spells without taking any of those classes. But I can't say the combination really works since both Rangers and Sorcerers have terribly few spells known. Another close runner-up was the Wild Magic Barbarian, Wild Magic Sorcerer, which kind of works, but other than the theme doesn't have much direct synergy. Still, it would be super chaotic, and I love it. That's the video for the week. Please let me know in the comments whether you enjoy this new, more broad format, or if you'd like me to do a level-by-level build of any of the classes I sketched out in this video. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel for more content like this, and I wish you all well with your top 18% stat-rolling monstrosities. Until next time, remember, you're not a number, you're a free being who is made up of numbers.